Ethiopian people and government will always give priority to peace. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Shifarao Lako, and thank you for watching us. Now, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has said that there will be no dialogue on Ethiopia's national interest. The government seeks to find a peaceful solution to the problem in the northern part of the country. The House of People's Representatives has held its 16th regular session. The members of the House presented questions and comments to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on current affairs, peace and security, as well as social and economic issues of the nation. Kasaun Chane has more on that.
Responding to questions raised by the members of the parliament today regarding a recent massacre committed by terrorists, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the Great War is waged chiefly as part of the global information war against Ethiopia. According to the Prime Minister, the global information war is one of the reasons for the massacre of innocent civilians in Ethiopia. Recalling a decision made by the Executive and Central Committees of the Prosperity Party about finding peaceful solutions to the problem in the northern part of the country, members of the House commented and questioned the legitimacy of the ruling party's decision to take part in the peace process, even though the TPLF's war is on the national unity and the security of the general public to disintegrate the nation.
The actions of TPLF were against the country. Do you think it's right for your party to negotiate unilaterally while it's still a terrorist group designated as a country? Don't you think it's also challenging to have negotiations with the group?
The Amhara and Oromo people have lived together for ages, but people are fighting to create divisions with evil narratives by the junta and Onek Shene. And as a result, hatred has been used, and Walagak, Alamolad, and Gamba. Lots of people have been killed, and this is the recent one. Even in the past, there have been a lot of destructions. Fathers, women, and children have been attacked based on ethnic identity and religious identity.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, responding to questions from the members of the parliament, said Ethiopian people and government will always give priority to peace.
Our security forces and the government is doing our level best to combat such threats. If we continue in the path that we're in, they will be destroyed because they do not have any viable purpose. They are just destructive. They will challenge us, but they will not defeat us. How can we stop such an act? I will go to it in detail later, but in general, these evil forces they may be able to kill our citizens and create disruptions, but will not stop us from our main goal.
The parliamentarian also questioned whether the House of People's Representatives' decision to negotiate peace talks with the terrorist group without declaring to the mass would be a crime.
The terrorist acts of Shene, you have been said to have been reluctant to speak against the acts of Shene. This Onek Shene group, designated as a terrorist group, you proclaimed it as an irregular group and called the genocidal acts as conflicts. justice starts with calling groups with their actual names. And so, what is your response to that? Thank you very much.
The Prime Minister said there is nothing wrong with the government-led Prosperity Party's decision to negotiate a peaceful solution. He said it was good to try and negotiate a peace process to eradicate the enemy's conspiracy and sustainably solve the problem.
4 or 5 months ago, we prepared an article for all government employees, supporters, position to discuss on issues of peace, and I have the numbers. Millions of people participated in the discussions 4 or 5 months ago. You discussed on it yourself as well. It's not an emergency situation, and we discussed about possibilities of solving this peacefully. This is because these forces in the country, they do not have their own means. They will not bear fruit because we're having problems discussing and talking. Foreign enemies are benefiting. So if we have the resources, we should have discussions. Being open to discussion is important, regardless of the results. Like I said earlier, you weren't here when they were proclaimed terrorist groups. But we do not negotiate with terrorists. We should reconsider this.
Prime Minister Abiy further pinpointed that enemies of the country are using various means to destroy the unity of Ethiopia by using domestic anti-peace forces.
In another development, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said that Ethiopia is now battling against grey war, consisting of information warfare and diplomacy. Responding to questions raised by the members of the parliament yesterday regarding the recent massacre committed by terrorists, Prime Minister Abiy said the grey war is mostly waged as part of global information war against Ethiopia. The Prime Minister explained that the grey war is an information war that caused the killing of innocent civilians intended to destabilize the country. He added that enemies of the country are using various means to destroy the unity of Ethiopia by using domestic anti-peace forces. In this regard, the Premier said they are trying to incite confrontation between Amhara and Oromo ethnic groups, as well as religious conflicts. He asserted that despite all the pressures and wars waged against Ethiopia, the country will never be defeated by those dark forces. Acknowledging tremendous challenges which Ethiopia is facing, Abiy reaffirmed that there is no force that can stop Ethiopia from moving forward to prosperity. In other news, Premier Abiy says terrorism remains to be a global concern, adding that the wave of attacks against civilians in Ethiopia must be seen in that light. And he accuses the OLF Shene of masterminding the terrorist attack in Wallagga, which for the most part targeted ethnic Amharas, vowing to stamp the Shene from the Ethiopian soil. Gushu Melissa has more on that.
Every person has the right to live.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed addressed lawmakers on Thursday regarding the fresh massacres of ethnic Amharas in Wallagga, Oromia region of Ethiopia. This is his first appearance before the 547-seat parliament after the wave of attacks happened in Oromia, Ethiopia's most populous state. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said terrorism is becoming a global concern.
Terrorism currently is a global challenge. There is an environment challenge. There is a problem of inflation and economic relationship. But terrorism stands out as a global challenge, must not be depicted as a failure on our security forces. And recently, in a meeting we had, dealt with terrorism as being a challenge in all corners of the world and on mechanisms of combating it collectively.
The Prime Minister assured members of the parliament that the government will do its level best to protect civilians from harm. He nevertheless made it clear that neither the OLF Shene nor other terrorist groups cannot stand on their own, adding they have enablers from outside aiding them in their evil acts. He urged Ethiopians to understand the mindset and principles of the terrorist groups and cooperate with the law enforcement bodies in exposing their hideous plans.
The primary responsibility of the government is to ensure peace and security. You're right at that. And the people's responsibility is to support the government it elected. When the government designs a policy, gives information, gives ideas, government is not a terrorist. Rather, it's a body that fights against terrorism at the cost of life. The role of the people is identify the terrorists and work to combat it.
Allegations of a second recent ethnic massacre in the restive region of Oromia further destabilize the country already coping with civil war in a northern region. The terrorist OLF Shene has struck alliance with others opposed to the government, including the TPLF, and recently partnered with another rebel group to carry out offensive in Gambela. He dismissed some accusations, labeling the government as being reluctant to stop the killings.
The killing in Ethiopia, as some people said, they say the government has been negligent and has been irresponsible. It should not be taken like that. The government is working 24/7 to save the life of its people, and as a result, it's been able to save lots of lives. It's true that we have lost citizens. So the security forces that serve the country at high cost, the parliament must recognize their efforts.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed disclosed that more than 6 terrorist attacks have been foiled in the capital Addis Ababa.
Welcome back. You're still watching Addis News Hour. Now, the 2022-23 Ethiopian budget, which was presented as a draft and passed through various discussions, was approved on Thursday at the 6th House of People's Representatives' first year 16th regular session. The major focus areas of the allocated budget for the Ethiopian fiscal year 2022-23 tabled to the House is for debt and budget deficit reduction, saving resources wisely, stabilizing inflation, rehabilitation and humanitarian assistance, maintaining national security and peace. Tigist Sarnisa has compiled the following story.
Responding to the House of People's Representatives, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed stated on Thursday that the major focus areas of the allocated budget for the Ethiopian fiscal year were debt and budget deficit reduction, stabilization inflation, rehabilitation, and humanitarian assistance, maintaining national security and peace. The budget is expected to be used wisely.
There are about 5, 6. The first one is on physical consolation. By physical consolation, reduction of debt is one, because it brings about many consequences. If we unduly overload ourselves, then it would cause lots of problems. So reduction of debt must be considered as an act of development. Otherwise, demands would be imposed on us. We've been working along these lines, so the focus area of this budget year remains the same. If we fail to do that, and if we do not reduce debts, then other consequences would ensue. And second one is decrease budget deficit, limit budget deficit, and thirdly, make use of our resources carefully. If we don't do that, we cannot ensure fiscal consolation. And secondly, is work on stabilizing of prices. In the past 17, 18, 19 years, it's been increasing annually, as I have mentioned last time. For the past 2 decades, it was on the increase.
The Premier, on his response to the House, noted that there is a positive economic growth, that 309 billion Ethiopian birr was able to be collected this Ethiopian fiscal year.
In general, would use everything that we have to ensure the continuity of our economic development. Even last year there was positive development. Even now, compared to other African countries, we're among the forefront in economic growth. This is approved by international financial institutions. Last year's report has been totally accepted by IMF, and they believe that there is a positive growth this year. It's around September we'll get the actual figures, but we expect better development. Based on this, the income of the government in the 12th month has not been calculated. The 11 months result was to collect 330 billion birr. We have gathered 309 billion birr. It's 93% of our plan.
Talking to ETV, member of the House of People's Representative expressed that utilization of the budget will be based on the intended objectives and plans.
Budget utilization is very important, particularly the supervision and oversight of the House of People's Representative. There are various outstanding committees, particularly budget, government expenditure committee is there, so they will continuously supervise and make sure that the budget is utilized based on the intended objective and intended developmental plans. Also, there are government regulatory bodies like the Office of the Auditor General. You will see the government expenses, and so that accountability will be assured.
Now, ensuring peace and security of citizens is the responsibility of a government of a given country. And talking to ETV English, members of the House of People's Representatives urge the Ethiopian government to take serious measures to bring perpetrators to justice in Wallagga and other parts of the country. Adding that the members said the community has to work together with the government to make the law enforcement operation successful. Attending the session, Shagai Mata has sent us the following report.
Ensuring peace and security of citizens is the responsibility of a government of one country. In Wallagga, Oromia region, civilians have been killed based on their identity. At the 6th House of People's Representatives first year 16th regular session, the members of the House raised their concerns over the ongoing killing of civilians, on how the government intended to limit the killings of citizens. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, for his part, replied that strict measures are being taken to control the terrorist attacks. In an exclusive interview with ETV, a member of parliament said civilian killings is committed by local terrorists supported by foreign enemies.
The ongoing killings of civilians in Ethiopia, which is mainly done by local terrorists who are backed by foreign enemies, is really very bad. We truly denounced that.
The members of the parliament also commented to the government of Ethiopia to take serious law enforcement measures to bring perpetrators to justice, adding that the community has the same responsibility to work together with the government in the law enforcement operation.
This conflict that happened in our countries maybe is a hands off many other countries that needs to be handled in Ethiopia. Our country, our peoples needs to fight against such kinds of conflict together.
And we as Member of Parliament believe that as terrorism worldwide is one of the difficult battles for government, because one thing they keep hiding within the community, and the only way to end it is with a very active participation of the communities themselves. We really believe that the people who selected us to represent them in the House should be continually supporting government law enforcement forces in finishing these killings and in ending the existence of these terrorists through information, through sometimes also protection and all other means. And so also reminding the government in accelerating the law enforcement measures the government is taking right now.
The members of the House of Representatives reiterated that their government must take serious measures to stop the killings of civilians in different parts of the country, since the primary responsibility of the government is to ensure peace and security of citizens.
ስለዚህ ምንድነው ጫሞና አባያን የለየው ሄድ እስከ ድልድይ የሚባለው አይደል አለ አይደል ድልድዩ ማለት ነው።
Jamo Lake's estimated measurements before the rain was 32 kilometers long, 13 wide, and 14 meters of depth.
And now moving to other stories, Japan has decided to extend an emergency grant aid worth $6.5 million for the drought-affected people in the Somali region. The grant aid will be provided as emergency food assistance through a partnership with the World Food Program. It is expected to provide 7,600 metric tons of food to 446,000 people in the Somali region who have been impacted by the drought. This will allow the beneficiaries to meet their basic food needs for a period of 6 months from July to December 2022, according to a statement issued by Japanese Embassy in Addis Ababa. This comes after Prime Minister Kishida announced, $200 million in food security assistance at the G7 summit last month as a response to the deterioration of global food security, which has been exacerbated by the situation in Ukraine. Now, in business, Ethiopia attracted $3 billion in foreign direct investment in the just ended Ethiopian fiscal year. Ethiopian Investment Commission, Foreign Direct Investment and Promotion Director Asjalo Taddese said the plan was to attract $3.6 billion. China, India, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates are the top countries that invested in Ethiopia. Some 163 of the companies have already paid commitment fees of between $150,000 and $200,000, which is for joint venture and foreign companies accordingly. Data show that in the first 9 months of the fiscal year, 57,451 citizens have benefited from the investment projects. The director revealed that reforms have been made in various sectors in a bid to improve the investment climate. Now, moving to African news, Congolese President Tshisekedi says he hopes talks at a mini-summit in Luanda with Rwandan President Paul Kagame will lead to an immediate ceasefire. The talks brokered by the Angolan president aim to de-escalate the violence which is flared between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels. Jerusalem Basiaza, more on that from African News.
The Rwandan President Paul Kagame and Congolese President Tshisekedi have agreed to a de-escalation process following weeks of rising tensions over rebel fighting in eastern DRC. The Congolese presidency said Wednesday after mediated talks, but the talks mediator, Angolan President João Lourenço, went further announcing a ceasefire, also giving no details. Violence has flared between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels and is going. The DRC has repeatedly accused Rwanda of backing the M23, a charge the small Central African country always denied.
It's ongoing.
I'm thanking you and concurring with you.
Tshisekedi's office said a roadmap had been established towards normalizing diplomatic ties, including through ending hostilities involving the M23 militia in eastern DRC. At the end of Wednesday's talks, the Congolese presidency said the three presidents had decided upon a de-escalation process between the DRC and Rwanda. The M23 must cease hostilities under the roadmap, according to the Congolese presidency, and the exploitation of natural resources in the region must be done in strict respect of the sovereignty of states.
You're still watching our Disney News Hour. Now let's take a quick look at the weather updates of some African nations.